Hello, Generals. We are here before the Battle of Shiloh. Just as a quick reminder of the scenario going into it, unlike the Confederate Let's Play or the Confederate playthrough, the Union commander in this fight can bring 2 units or 2 corps, and we're 3 corps shy or 3 brigades shy of my 30-unit goal going into Shiloh, which is fine. Let's take a look at the army before we head in. I've rejiggered and bumped around the officers to make sure that I'm not running into any command penalties for just officers that are too small for the commands are given and that kind of thing. I had been trying to get away with the lowest ranked officer I could get away with in order to try and scale some of them up or rank some of them up, but here we are. Generally speaking, the average infantry size is about 1,000 men. In some cases, because I didn't want to be buying weapons, the units are going to be 900 men, and that's close enough as far as I'm concerned. So the average size is still 1,000. We're taking a look at First Corps. Every unit has a modern rifle: Harper's Ferries, 55s, Lorenz's, so forth and so on. We've got artillery units: First Field, Second Ordnance, 5th Counter Battery, which is exactly all they're going to be doing, and 4th Howitzer. As well as the 1st Lightfoot with the sharp shooters. Let's take a look at Second Corps. Second Corps represents completely 100% fresh rookies, with the exception of 3rd Field, which is a larger 6-pounder battery, and then also 6 Howitzer, new, used entirely with captured howitzers. My intention is to get the unit experience and then swap that out to a better gun over at some point in time in the near future, but I'm using what I've got, essentially. We've got 2nd and 3rd skirmishers using captured hunters. I'm not a gigantic fan of the weapon. I have a pretty low opinion of it, actually. But, again, using what we've got, and I need to get the unit's experience, and I just kind of need bodies to extend the line and that kind of deal. 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 9th Infantry all have smoothbore weapons. So what this means, I expect, is that going into the fight, First Corps is going to dramatically outperform Second Corps. And I'm hoping against hope that First Corps is on the Union right and Second Corps is on the Union left. It is my expectation, my hope, that that works out. If it doesn't, we'll see. I'm not going to hold on the Union left. I'm going to give ground and let them take the flags immediately, and I'm gonna try and pull back to the mule shoe. That's not right. Hornet's Nest. There you go. Geez, sorry. The Hornet's Nest basically immediately. If I can fight a bit of a delaying action and get some easy kills, I will. But there's not really any, in my opinion, not really any obviously defensible terrain on the right, whereas on the left, it screams defense. I've rebalanced the supply wagon. You'll notice that I had 35,000 in the First Corps supply wagon, and I needed to spread it out a bit to make sure that Second Corps also had a decent supply wagon. So this should make things a little easier too, so that we're not just sucking up 2,500 supply and then calling it a day. Without further ado, let's get in there. And I'll be making plenty of edits to cut out kind of the empty space because there's plenty of empty space. So the benefit of the small units, I think, is that the AI has not really scaled nearly as much as I think that they can. We're at a wee bit better than 2-to-1 odds. I know a lot of these soldiers are allied soldiers who are going to come in the later parts of the battle, but I'm still really happy with the numeric situation. Really hasn't grown too wildly out of control. If I can knock out and capture any meaningful portion of this gun total, that's going to be fantastic. Look at the brigade count, pretty close parity. I mean, we're not wildly outnumbered in terms of the number of brigades, which does mean that the size of the enemy brigades are going to be just outrageous, and that's why my intent is to hold on the right. So this is about where I think the right is, the Union right, and then instead of trying to hold down here, I'm going to fall back to the mule shoe area and use this open field as sort of, not mule shoe, damn it, Hornet's Nest area, and use that area as just an open killing ground, and then rely on allies to help fill the line in and hold the line because my fresh troops are not going to be up to the challenge. I am also leaning on more smaller units to hopefully be able to outmaneuver larger Confederate ones. So I'm going to pause and issue initial orders. Hey, generals, it's Fiasco. So I had recorded audio during the course of this playthrough, but the audio levels were all kinds of messed up. And I'm sure you've noticed in my past videos there's not been any sound from the gameplay. So I was trying to fix that, and it got to the point where it was hard to hear my voice over the musketry of the game. So instead of trying to mess with that and play with levels and everything, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the volume off from the prime recording and then dub over a new track. I'm also doubling the speed of the Battle of Shiloh. This is a fairly long video, or was a fairly long video, and I realized it was just going to take forever to slog through it. So we're just going to go ahead and do this. So what I'm doing here, this is a pretty standard Union left or Union right opening deployment for Shiloh. These are all First Corps troops, which means rifle armed, and I've got basically the skirmishers there developed into a position where they can kind of bait, theoretically, a charge. I know how aggressive the AI is. I know how much it hates skirmishers. So the dream is that I'm going to bait them. It doesn't really end up, it to a degree, it does end up playing out that way. But I had been used to being able to use the units in these two central copses of trees to support, or in the central copse of trees to support both left and right. And I'm not used to the Confederates directly attacking the center. And they do that here. They attack and even penetrate the position. And it's this incredibly desperate touch-and-go defense to get them out of the area. And we've talked about this a couple of times in the videos, and something Compass has commented in the videos, that to our perception, this is far closer to what a Civil War era battle should look like. And I look at the film Gettysburg, or the historical accounts of a Confederate assault, and the way that I fight this off looks and feels to me far better. They penetrate my position, they get in there, they engage in some light melee before I'm able to back out. There's a number of waved assaults that they pull off. It's really touch and go. But the initial skirmishing here goes more or less entirely my way. This unit on the left, trying to cross the river, just gets shut down. That's Shaver. The unit here with Hardy, we end up taking the commander out, which is a huge, gigantic coup for the early portion of this battle. There ends up being another general to kind of ride herd on the attacking force here. I forget his name now, but there's another general. And their attack gets a lot more steam on the right portion of the screen, where my deployment's fairly light. There's the unit of skirmishers, there's the two units, there's the one in the wood and the one behind them. But they're able to penetrate the position, and I don't have enough supporting fire to push them out. It's really exciting, and I don't want to sound like I'm disappointed in that situation. I actually found let's take a step back. This battle was so fun. It was really touch and go. It was really rough. The Army performed exceptionally well, far better than I expected, especially some of the new units. And when I've played Shiloh, you watch that Brigadier General playthrough, the Confederates never really significantly threatened me in the BG playthrough. And I don't want to shit on, BG level of difficulty, but that version of Shiloh, we just kind of trounced them at every possible turn. And it really becomes this really touch and go battle of target prioritization and sapping the morale of a target and letting it sit there because I just need to put resources elsewhere. There's a situation, and we're going to get there, I think, in a little bit, where they push into the middle, and I have my unit that's morale shocked, but I cannot pull them out of the line, because if I do, they could easily affect a breakthrough to my center. So I just need to sit there, and let them tank the damage because they're also morale shocked. And it's this really incredibly, for me, fascinating tactical kind of decision-making process of like, do I let them just eat the brunt of that fire? Yeah, this press here, this press by these two brigades pushing up to my center, and then the third one in support, led by, and I can't read it on the screen now, unfortunately, but led by that general. This whole thing, they stick there for a minute, and kicking them out of those woods takes forever, and it is a grueling, grueling fight. The likes of which I've never experienced on Brigadier General. I've never experienced this kind of knockdown, drag-out brawl, and that's all that I can describe what's happening in the center as the situation evolves over the course of the remainder of this battle. It is a just horrendous fight, and it's far closer to what I've read about the close order. I mean, the duration and the lethality of the skirmish is perhaps moderately ahistorical. I mean, casualty figures for this battle were big, but they were not, I don't know, like anyway, yeah. We keep on talking about it. This feels like the war, what it actually was. And there's just, I want to commend 1st Infantry for the incredible heroism of that unit, and they're going to get a moniker at the end of the battle. I upgrade them to 1st Guard Infantry because they're the Rock of Shiloh, and it's the way that you tell stories in this game when these units kind of do this stuff. Oh my goodness, Major General just it's forcing me to relearn how to play this game. I'd kind of thought that Shiloh was kind of a solved battle, and I could not be more wrong about that situation. So, yeah, this part of the fight is relatively straightforward. Everybody's kind of, if you've seen Shiloh be played on any difficulty level, this part of the battle doesn't go meaningfully different. The only difference is that we're on Major General, and the Confederate Army is larger, more aggressive, and more competent. But that's basically it. Everything else in terms of the, what is the appropriate strategy in terms of keeping them across the other side of the river and bleeding them whenever they attempt to cross, and using the fact that they're coming uphill over open terrain on the extreme Union right, where the skirmishers and where one of the infantry units is currently shooting at the guys in the river. And then just understanding that the position in the center with all the woods is going to be kind of a knockdown, drag out, but if you draw back a bit, you can fire on them in the river, and that's fine. It's been a little bit done. What's great here is I've got some units from, I didn't want him initially there, but I've got some units from 2nd Corps, so these are brand new smoothbore armed units, and they're still doing great work. They're still, kicking butt, taking names. One of them eventually, and it takes me too long to do it, but you see 10th Infantry coming down from in the center there, and that's a 1,300 man unit with farmers or rebores, I forget. I think it's rebores. And I end up having them step into the place of 1st Infantry, which these are completely untested, fresh recruits, and they're being asked to go toe-to-toe with 2,000-man, 3-star brigades. And the only way that I can even remotely begin to ask them to do that is because they're supported by artillery, and those 2 brigades are morale shocked, and they're being shot at by, skirmishers and then units to their left and right. And yeah, I don't know. It's very exciting. So we just keep on grinding this out, basically, and that's the first part of this battle. Is I cannot give up this terrain as much as it is costing me men to do so. I cannot afford to cede this portion of the battlefield. So we just grind it out. Fortunately, things are going a lot better on the right of the screen. The 2 fresh units are really pushing them back, and they never really get any steam up on the left part of the screen. So yeah, we're still grinding this out. And the situation is, so I've just give you just a quick heads up. I've tripled the speed of the rest of this battle. So I cut this battle into 2 I had to record this in 2 separate recordings. I've cut this portion from here on out is tripled, and we're gonna finish the fight basically in this recording. So we've managed to, thankfully, kind of kick them out of that central woods. I've replaced 1st Infantry with 10th Infantry to kind of stand in the center there and engage Johnson. And they've got farmers, but we also have near numeric parity with them, and we're hitting them from enough different sides that things are kind of going okay. One of the things I'm becoming increasingly cognizant of as I play this portion of the fight is how desperate I am for ammunition, how desperate the supply situation is becoming. And some of these units are getting to the point where they're not going to be able to keep this sort of fighting up for much longer. So that charge into 3rd Infantry from that Confederate unit crossing the river right now, oh goodness, it's just, I can't let that kind of melee go on. They outnumber me 3-1. It doesn't matter if I've got good positioning or whatever, or supporting fire. 3-1, 1-star units versus 3-star units in melee. I can't begin to support that kind of situation. Melee, not a thing. I need to defeat the Confederate Army via fires, especially in this phase of the battle. So I'm forced to recommit 1st, while 3rd recovers. And you'll notice that 1st and 3rd have both suffered pretty heavy casualties. And the rest of the Corps really hasn't. The rest of the Corps is at roughly 25-ish, 30%, which is not light by any stretch. I don't want to make it sound like that's light casualties, but 1st and 3rd, are at nearly 50% casualties. And so now we come to the second half, or the other half of day 1, or the first phase. So my initial plan had been to completely just cede and hide in the back corner and let them take both flags and hope the phase ended quickly. But because of the way this battle shakes out, you get some of 2nd Corps units on the Union right, and you get some of 1st Corps units on the Union left, which is not what I wanted, but here we are, and we make the best we can with the situation we've got. So I decide, let's do a kind of a fighting retreat, get some kills where we can, and then we'll just kind of see how it goes. What ends up shaping out is we kind of end up sticking this out longer than I planned to. And that's partially because, for reasons I can't begin to understand, the Confederates don't press some of their attacks like I feel like they should, or I would in their shoes. And they allow themselves to be hemmed up by units that can't meaningfully damage them. There's one 3,000-man brigade that is engaged by a unit of like 130 skirmishers. It's just, so the skirmishers from 14th are currently engaging whoever they're engaging, Poole or Polk or something, and they just stand there. They just let my 130-man skirmisher unit pot shot them, for a while. I can't begin to understand why the AI isn't pressing some of these attacks forward. Then it's probably because the position is supported by artillery or a backstop brigade of infantry or something, but I've got no idea. On the left of the screen here, I am banking on massed fires from a number of smaller units being greater than the sum of their parts into that one large brigade. I'm kind of freaked out by the 1,000-man cav unit, so I kind of need to skirmish with them for a while. They end up shattering. It takes a minute for that to happen, but basically every time they come in, they get worse than they give. And we just sort of do that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and eventually they just kind of call it a day. It does take a minute, but that's essentially what you have to do. So yeah, we just keep on going. There's 7th there in the woods. They've got Lorenz's, and they're able to really punish that cav unit, whoever it is. I can't read it on the screen. Johnson. Whenever he comes at me, we have a large unit. This is concerning because they're walking right at me, and they could theoretically put musket fire directly into cannon. But we're able to hit them from enough different sides that the unit gets morale shocked, and they give up. The cav comes in again. We punish them for their fall, for the error of their ways, and we sort of just repeat that process, over and over and over again. when we get these skirmishers, I get the impression like, oh, I have enough skirmishers theoretically I could hold up in advance, because now I've got all of my skirmish units on, I think, this side of the battle. Or you know what? No, I don't think that first skirmishers shows up until later. But yeah, I've got my 2 hunter units, and this is a great opportunity for them to kind of rack up some early kills, in that they're defending an elevated position across a river, and so theoretically that'd be a good opportunity to get some kills. I keep flirting with the idea of sending 1st Dragoon cannon hunting, and it just never happens. It just never happens because there's that big cav unit, and I just can't get back there. I don't trust 1st Dragoon operating independently to handle that big ass cav unit, which makes sense. I mean, there's damn near 1,000 of them at this point. They outnumber them 3-1, and so I just can't get away with it. So we finally get to the point where the Confederates are starting to cross near Larkin Bell, and that's when I unload with the 24-pounders. I have been keeping them locked up until now, and using the 6-pounders over on the Spain field to keep the Confederates busy. And so now with the 24-pounders and dug-in rifle-armed infantry, there's 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 Confederate infantry coming on a position held by a little over 3,000 Union and 2 units of artillery, and we're able to hold them off for a while. And it's just, this is the power of rifles. This is the power of a superior position, and the power of concentrated fire. So there's actually 4 units over there. So 12,000 Confederate infantry pressing up against 3,000 Union, and I'm just continuously able to push these units back. They do eventually take the flag. Obviously, there's just no way I can overcome those numbers. But at this point, I'm debating: do I retreat or do I hold it out? And I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna make them pay for every ounce of dirt they take from me, and they're gonna push me out. Dude, I can't hold back 4 times my number, no matter how good I'm at, as far as my position is concerned. But I mean, you can see me frantically clicking the mouse around to make sure that the artillery, is firing at one unit, and then it fires at another unit. And I don't want them pounding on one unit repeatedly. I want them kind of, we're looking for maximum bang for buck. So I'm looking for units that are predominantly in the river, that are predominantly in the open, that are threatening to take the flag, or whose flank I can target. And I'm never really comfortable pushing the 24-pounder up into canister range, where I feel like they could really make some serious progress. But they're firmly in shell range the entire time. And of course, if the Confederates were ever able to muster the will to push up towards where 3rd and 2nd Infantry are, that's not 3rd. Sorry, that's 4th maybe. 2nd Infantry for sure. Where they are, and 4th Howitzer, I would be using canister to throw them back, but through just kind of careful application of the artillery and making sure that I'm constantly morale shocking these units, I can kind of freeze them in place, and then we just hammer them with rifle fire, hammer them with artillery, hammer them with that. I think I have that howitzer unit in place. Maybe not yet. Maybe we get more reinforcements and they're not here yet. I don't know. I can't tell. They're here. The howitzers are here. So there's the new unit, 6th or 7th howitzer, which is just a bunch of 12-pounders. It's not a great cannon, but again, in this kind of situation where you have dream terrain, you just pull the trigger and see what you can do. This is great that I got the 2 howitzer units as reinforcements in this particular part of the battle. If I'd gotten, the wired unit or the 10-pound parrots, I don't know how effective they would be. So with the canister shot on Johnston's cavalry, I see the tick down counter. So they've taken the flag, and in 3 minutes, the tick down counter will come down to 0 and the Confederates will hold the flag. So now I'm pulling back because I realize, this segment's going to end and I need to retreat. So the map finally opens up to the larger overall portion of the map, and we set the retreat. I get a little cocky with the cavalry because I see that cannon back there. It's the 400-man unit of artillery. I'm like, oh, this is a good opportunity to shoot the cannon with cavalry. So now my thought process with my right is I need to hold just long enough for the cannon to fall back. I have really no intention of giving up my position on the Union right, sorry, the right of the screen, my apologies. The Union right on the left of the screen right now, I can hold that all day. I've got no desire to fall back. I'm like, let's just go ahead and hold here, and we're going to form our line. Yeah, and so I get cocky with the cav. I do get a volley off on the cannon, but they get hammered by melee cav, which is okay. I get lucky that they disengage with they only inflict 50 casualties, and then I disengage, and I'm able to arrest them before it matters, and I also don't lose the officer, which is excellent. However, I've lost the officer in one of my infantry units, and I go ahead and merge them with second, and that unit ends up getting some just great kills over the course of the fight. So, so we're pulling the infantry back to form a line using the hornet's nest and this long, thin sort of J shape of trees to sort of form the line along that position. And we use the farmhouse and some of the blocks of forests to sort of anchor our left, Union left. And then eventually I get Allied troops to kind of help me fill in that line some more. And then we begin kind of slowly but surely working on turning their flank. It's a grindy process, and that's kind of one of the things I love about this battle is that at no point is the AI a pushover until the very, 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 very end when their back has been broken, obviously. But they continue the offensive. They are tenacious. They fight hard, and they really make me work for it. So it's a beautiful fight, and they do a great job. So I've got this big-ass artillery park basically in the hornet's nest in the center because I realize that's great artillery terrain. It's not great defending infantry terrain. So you've got me using blocks of woods as basically kind of World War I style trenches everywhere. Anywhere I can find a block of heavy woods that I can occupy that would be hard for the Confederates to take, I occupy when I can. And in the center, leading up to the hornet's nest, is a lot of open terrain, but there's not really any equally good defensive terrain I can occupy. You notice the big open field. So I fill it with skirmishers that have long-range weapons, and I fill it with artillery. So basically I fill it with standoff weapons or first strike weapons with the intent of striking farther than the range of a musket or a rifled musket. And now I'm hurriedly spreading out the ammo wagons because we have them. we have them. And especially the Union right near Shiloh Church is desperately short of ammunition. So yeah, the Mixed Brigade Wagner, that's 2nd and I want to say 4th Infantry merged together into one unit. They are real rock stars in terms of kills. I think they get like 5,000 kills or something stupid like that. We're just kind of keeping steady. I'm using the Shiloh Church position as basically the shield and around which the rest of the army will eventually wheel. But I'm letting the Confederates break themselves on my line, and they oblige. They're aggressive. They come at me. I trust that they will. And I wait until I see these units getting to the like 900, 800 man mark before I start aggressively pushing out myself. But in the center near Hornet's Nest, I just let the artillery kind of handle the fight. I let a dug-in Wagner handle that fight. There's a unit of Palmetto infantry essentially body blocking the artillery. And they fulfill the role of sort of like tank, like a MMO style tank, where they take the hits for the rest of the army, so it doesn't have to bear them. So the artillery gets off relatively light, with the exception of, with the exception of 4th Howitzer. That's a 24-pounder unit. They have some artillery that spends a good portion of this fight outside of my line of sight. And it's on counter battery the entire time. And it wears that unit down. Yeah. Let's take a look at this unit here. Johnson is attempting to cross a river. He was 3,000 men. He's now down to under 1,000. And he just perfect canister shot from second ordnance. Like, they just can't keep this kind of stuff up. And Johnston's cav is shattered. And so now I sense my opportunity to begin pushing. Once their cav unit's gone, their ability to ride around my flank is also gone. They had another cav unit earlier that I shattered. So as far as I know, it's just infantry and cannons. And so at this point, now I can start seeking their flank. I have decided that now is the point when I can begin to gently begin my attack. Oh, there's another unit of cavalry. My bad. So there's 3. They bring 3 in this fight. Not long-lived, however. So I've got 1st and 2nd Dragoon kind of pushing on the Union extreme left, right of the screen. And they're going to go cannon hunting. And then I'm using the Allied troops to handle turning the flank. And that is because I know that's going to be the most expensive portion of the battle in terms of manpower from here on out. So holding on the Shiloh Church position was incredibly expensive in terms of manpower in the early portion of the game. I know I saw 2 units, both taking 500-man casualties. But from here on out, it's now going to be Ammon's brigade or Ammon's division dealing with the brunt of the fire. There's going to be losses felt in all these units. I'm going to take losses across the board, but the heaviest ones are going to be in the Allied units. So they make frequent forays into this position where Fiasco MG is currently hanging out. There's a unit of Lorenz's there that's able to provide long-range fire. And this position where it looks like 14th and 7th Infantry and that one unit of 63 skirmishers that position is the hinge. That is genuinely the hinge upon which this entire battle turns. They hold like rock stars. 12th and 11th Infantry are both using Springfield 42s. They provide supporting fire from the flanks, but they are not... I mean, it's all green troops, with the exception of 7th wielding Lorenz's, who fight like tenacious little guys. It's all green troops holding my center, and they do great. So these Confederate units now falling back give me the opportunity to push the Allied troops up to the edge of the forest terrain. And at this point in time, the Confederate flank has been turned. Obviously, it's a tenuous position, and I could lose the momentum, but their flank has been turned, and I can begin the process of closing the net. And you see me doing that on the far Union right. I'm detaching skirmishers from 3 or 4 brigades. I think it's 3, but I forget. And I'm going to go looking for Confederate artillery in the backfield on the right as well, because I start to think, their infantry is starting to get to the 600-700 man size, down from 3,000. Their ability to defend their flanks and especially defend their artillery and their far backfield is going to be significantly reduced. And so now I begin essentially offensive operations. So yeah, I'm actually really happy with the performance of the Army. Some of these units are itty-bitty. They're tiny. And a 500-man loss in some of these infantry units represents, 50+%. Look at that. 1st Infantry is down to 482 men. That's huge. That is huge. That's expensive to replace. I can tell you, I've cleaned the Army up after Shiloh. It's expensive to replace. Not in terms of money or men. I've got plenty of both. And I even have plenty of the guns. It doesn't cost me anything to refill 1st Infantry in terms of, weapons. I've got the muskets. But the experience, geez, man. Like, they take a huge experience hit. But I'm committed to my Army construction strategy is I use rookies until either I would lose a perk or I hit my self-imposed unit cap, whichever comes first. And I'm actually really happy with kind of how that strat's going. It's the Army's better. The Army that comes out of Shiloh is a hardened fighting machine. and it's ready. It's ready for the Gaines's Mill campaign. I can't wait to get into these battles. We are going to just do so good. We're already starting to do so good. The Union Army is coming together really well, and I'm just so excited to see where this campaign goes as we go into Major General, and I'm forced to learn more. So back into the fight. I've got the Cav raiding the rear of the Confederate position, taking down one artillery unit. Not decisively. You'll notice that I have to fight them for a while. And now I'm pushing with skirmishers at another Confederate artillery unit. You know, once I have the freedom to get into their backfield like this, it becomes very precarious for the Confederates. Because, you know, now their field support's kind of gone. They have a great little push that comes into my center, and you just see me fall back. Near 7th, in the middle of the screen right now on the top part of it. Yeah, there's 3 Confederate brigades pushing into my position, and I just I fall back and, you know, give ground to buy time, basically. And I hit them from enough different sides, and units start to break, or not break, but, you know, falter. However, the success of the skirmishers on the Union right is giving me the thought process that I can begin swinging the door around the hinge that is 7th Infantry and begin my flank maneuver or my counterattack. The 2 Cav units are going to charge and melee and finish off the arty unit, and then once the skirmishers and the Cav units have linked up, which they will do in a little bit here, once they've completed the link up maneuver, you know, at that point in time, I wouldn't say it's a done deal, but, you know, now I've scouted their rear. I know where most of this stuff is, and now it's just a matter of finding it, writing it down, and shooting it to death. This is still an army that lives and dies on fires. We are not really a melee force yet. When I start getting 2nd star perks, I'm going to be putting units through the assault corps so that we're not quite so much of a pushover in melee. But when I'm going up against units that are 3 times my size with 3 stars, I cannot bank on melee being a winning strategy more often than not. I have to bank on fires. I have to bank on overlapping layers of support and that kind of thing, and then we use that. So things are going great on the Union right. You can see I'm transitioning to an offensive stance, and I'm trying to push the Confederates. And then you take a look at the Union left. It's still rough there. There's still a lot of teeth in that Confederate army, and they're doing great. There's another 12,000 men or something along those lines, posted up, basically standing in the open, trading fire with the Allied troops who are standing in cover. So I mean, it's a fighting position that I'm confident. That I'm confident we can win. You take a look at what's happening on the Union counter push. We're knocking out entire artillery batteries. First gets in a little over its head with that large Confederate unit, but we outmaneuver it, and we deal with it when the time comes. I'm folding the skirmishers back into their parent units because they're out of ammunition and they're just tired. And the Cav has linked up with the infantry anyway, so that sort of scouting arm has accomplished its ultimate objective or original objective. So yeah, we're knocking out artillery units. I don't end up capturing a lot of guns, which is sort of frustrating. Which, you know, we'll get to that later. I've preserved the pregame and post audio from the night that I recorded this because there's just not so much background noise making the audio commentary hard to pull out. That's kind of why I dubbed over all of this. Is the levels were all kinds of messed up, and every time the units fire a volley on either side, there's the crackling of musketry, as you would expect in this kind of a game. But I'm trying to talk over it, and the way that the recording got put together, it's all at the exact same volume, so you just can't ever hear me over the game, which is a thing I'll tweak for the Gaines's Mill campaign and hopefully for the rest of this thing. So I discovered that I wasn't recording sound at all, and obviously in an attempt to fix that, I've I've pushed too far on the other direction, so the pendulum's gone the wrong way and that kind of thing. But yeah, so it's unfolding. I'm actually, like I said, I think this is a really fun fight. It goes surprisingly similarly to my Brigadier General playthrough. If you put that video on fast, you kind of watch basically the exact same battle unfold on a broad scale. So in a broad stroke, we fell back on the Union left and held at the Hornet's Nest, and then swung right from the Shiloh Church position and captured the Confederate Army in a kind of counterflanking pincher maneuver position. However, this actually goes better. The Major General fight, believe it or not, actually goes better than the Brigadier General fight. I take heavier losses. I take heavier losses, and it's definitely more touch and go. But the BG fight goes to the second day, and this one doesn't. We get 100% Confederate eradication on day one, and I don't think that they get any reinforcements except perhaps Stewart's cav shows up on day two. So I guess we missed a cav unit. Whoop-de-doo. The Confederates don't get any reinforcements on day two, so getting them all on day one and calling it a day is excellent on a number of different grounds. So it's excellent because, hey, it's less time wasted and all that kind of stuff. It's also awesome because, with the exception of those 3 brigades that we get from the Allied units, my army is the one that does 100% of the fighting, again, with the exception of the 3 brigades that we get in the Allies, and right now I'm using them to soak up all the casualties, with the exception of Wagner, who's currently kind of engaged more heavily than I think I'd like. It's the Allied units are the ones doing all the fighting, and 9th Infantry has a real baptism of fire. This is a brand new unit armed with farmers, and they stick this thing out. They started this battle with like 1,400 men, and they're down to 300 and change. Oh boy, to be a man in that regiment or brigade, goddamn, like just, Shiloh would go down in history. Well, frankly, if the Confederate Army were to suffer these kind of casualties in one battle, I think that would end the war right then and there. But that's another discussion. So Wagner's morale shocked. I pull him back. I push the farmer unit up into position to sort of replace them. I'm just continually riding the supply wagons back and forth and back and forth and back and forth across the line. I've turned off ammo for cannons. I let the cannons just kind of blast away. At this point, I need to preserve the ammunition for infantry. And we've learned repeatedly, thanks to Adius's videos in my Panda Mod breakdown vid, that resupplying an infantry brigade with ammo is relatively cheap in terms of supply wagon usage. And if that's the case, the supply wagons, if they're used to support the infantry, can basically keep the army fighting more or less indefinitely. And what you run into with supply issues is if you try and keep the artillery train supplied. So yeah, back to the fight, non-meta discussion. I'm closing the door, basically. All of the Union position from Shiloh Church is now closing to enclose the Confederates in sort of a pincher attack, or enveloping their position. I'm now bringing all the new troops out. Like, there's just more and more and more and more and more guys can push into this counterattack, and we're hitting them from more and more directions. And because they're high quality 3-star units, they stand there and they take it, which is perfect. It's perfect as far as I'm concerned. And we just blast them. We just blast them. We are now to the point where I feel confident launching the offensive. The Confederate Army, all of these units are at about half strength, or possibly even 1/3 strength. We've got them encircled in this pocket, and unlike when I made the same mistake at Logan's Crossroad of thinking I could encircle and destroy, I do that here. I absolutely intend to encircle and destroy, but unlike Logan's Crossroads, I wait. I wait until they've got to fight. They've got, plenty of fight left in them. But I wait until the Confederate Army is soundly beaten. You can take a look at the blue-red bar. Remember where it used to be. The clock, 6 April 1450 and change, whatever time it ends up being. So it's just shy of 3 o'clock. My blue bar, my blue bar barely went past the clock at one juncture, and now it's pretty heavily weighted towards Team Blue. We're pushing the Confederates into the corner. I'm hunting down these artillery units with relentless desire to kill cannons. Because once I can kill the cannons, the battle's basically over. The cannons are the big killers. But what I'm running into is a supply issue. A lot of my extreme flankers that I'm using to kind of keep the door closed and keep the pressure on the Confederates to force them into this death pocket that I'm pushing them into, where there's no terrain to cover and hide in and that kind of thing, and they're in a river, because I want them moving in the direction they're moving. I want them moving where there's very little terrain for them to hide in and where there's very little safe area for them to retreat into, so they have to only fight in open terrain, in the river, all this kind of stuff. I need to have troops here. But they're exhausted and they've got no ammo. And I don't know. I think I need to kind of, I'm watching this in post, and I need to learn from this particular portion of the maneuver when I'm sort of wrapping the battle up. Like, how do I prep this? Do I need to have the logistics perk? Do I wait? I don't know. I don't know what to do as far as that part's concerned, because they're not really there to kill stuff. So if they're out of ammo, that's frustrating, but not the end of the world. I don't really care. I don't care if these cav guys shoot anything. They're just keeping the door closed. But at the same time, I think maybe I need them to fight, right? So I don't know. I'm not really sure. There's some questions I have. There's definitely some lessons to be learned. So I guess I do ultimately pull the cav out, realizing that they're A, exhausted, and B, out of ammo. So like, how effective can they possibly be? Also, actually, that's a good point. I guess while I'm watching this now, I pull the cav out, but I do so when the infantry who has ammo and is rested is in a place to take their position, and to keep that door closed and to keep the Confederates moving in the direction I want them moving and all that kind of thing. So I guess the cav had served their purpose at that point in time, and I'm able to get them out. And I'm pretty sure they spend the rest of the battle resting, which they've earned. They've absolutely earned. Both units started at around 250, and they're now down to around 200, which I would actually consider, for the purposes of a cavalry unit, to be very acceptable casualties. I'm, with the exception of a couple of units that have taken like 500 or 600 mans or 600 units worth of casualties, I actually am really happy with the casualty figures for my units. Now, again, the Allied units take some pretty heavy losses, but that was actually kind of the intent. My units do great. They take surprisingly light losses, and that's wonderful. So there's a couple units that got hit particularly hard, and I think one of the lessons I'm going to try and use going forward is having that reserve, so I can attempt to relieve units if they're in a particularly hard-fought position or place. But for the most part, I'm really happy with the strength, with the performance of the Union Army here, and we're wrapping up. We're coming up on the close of the fight here. So before too long, I will transition over to my audio recording on the day of, and I can't wait to see you guys in the Gaines's Mill campaign. I'm so looking forward to it, and I will talk to you soon. Fiasco out. Oh, I don't want to go to day 2. This is just the one unit. Oh man, this battle has been an absolute mess. But a fun one. Okay, So 7,800 Union casualties. I don't know how many of those are mine. A lot, surely. We lost 4 guns. I know for sure those are mine because the only ones who brought artillery are me. And I know 2 of those were 24 pounders. I don't know what the other ones were. Probably 6 pounders. Those are the ones most of the fighting. We'll find out. Cavalry, yeah, that's about right. However, yeah, near complete infantry destruction. So I guess the remainder didn't show up. I guess there is a day 2 with reinforcements. 10,000 didn't even show up. Wow. Well, or those are the ones that are left over once the various units broke. I guess there's that. That's a possibility. Cavalry, 600 some odd got away. Yeah, we didn't get any captures, which is a real pain. But Jesus, 4,000 artillerymen down, or 2,800, so 3,000. 113 guns. Let's see how much we captured. Goals, yeah. Units, some seriously impressive kills for some of these units. 5th, 2nd Infantry blew my mind. Half losses, though. This is, I think, one of the real things that are going to be kind of a thing to watch out for. One of the costs associated, yeah, probably 6 pounders with this sort of unintentionally small unit strategy is that kind of catastrophic loss ratio. I don't know which ones of these are mine or which ones of these are not, but there are a boatload of promotions, so this is pretty good too. And let's take a look at the captures. So, okay, shotguns don't care. Pistols I do like. Oh, wow, a lot of Springfields. That's great. Napoleons will use, maybe. I have enough to make a unit, I think about it. 12-pound howitzers. They're okay, I guess. Recovered some 55s, recovered some Springfield. Okay. Yeah, so nothing majorly useful. I recovered one of the 2 24-pounders we lost. That's good. Okay, yeah. This is a good battle. I think this is cleaner than my Brigadier General one. I mean, not on an individual unit lesson, but we didn't go to day 2, so that part's good. Yeah, wow. Let's take a look at how the Army's looking. We gained Grant. That's excellent. Okay, got a $250,000 and a bunch of dudes. We're going to use a lot of it. Lost 2 officers out of 1st Corps. That's a major and a captain, looks like. Okay, that's not bad. And then another officer out of another major. So we lost 3 officers in the battle, but everybody got stars. Everybody got stars. I bet you even get a star if we put a unit in you. Yep. Cool. So that's awesome. We got career points. We got a whole new crop of armory, weapons, and barracks guys. And then reputation points with 20-pound parrots. Super exciting. Oh my goodness. Hey guys, this is a long slog. Thanks for sticking this out. This has been Shiloh, and I'm going to be cleaning a lot up in here, I'm sure. Thanks so much for sticking this out. This is Fiasco, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.